here live on the Worldwide Sports Network. Everybody remember going follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. We are live here on the Wise Guys Sports Show. Man, I had a great weekend. It was Labor Day weekend. You know, everybody looks at Labor Day weekend as kind of like that last holiday before we head into the fall season. So I had a great Labor Day weekend. Hope everybody else had a great Labor Day weekend as well. We had some nice and great college football on display Saturday afternoon. We saw Georgia beat down the Oregon Ducks in Athens on Saturday. Then I saw a great matchup too between Notre Dame and O State. O State ended up winning that game, but Notre Dame definitely battled in that game. They controlled most of the game, but when we got into the fourth quarter, CJ Stroud showed why he is universally recognized as one of the best quarterbacks we have in college football. So they took care of business. So you got Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama roll tide. All three of those teams took care of business on Saturday. So, you know, we got an exciting college football season ahead of us. I mean, a lot of people think it's going to either be Ohio State, Alabama, or Georgia. And the betting odds are Ohio State, Georgia, or Alabama, or the field. So that's the betting odds right now. But everybody know I'm excited because we are here. NFL Week 1 is upon us. We got the Thursday night matchup. Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills are traveling to the West Coast to take on Matthew Stafford and the LA Rams, the defending Super Bowl champs. That game is going to be on Thursday night, 8:20 kickoff. I'm going to be on Thursday night, but I'm going to be getting off early because I'm so excited for my NFL football that's going to be back. So I'm excited about that. Call into the show, 513-203-8655, 513-203-8655. It's the number to dial. Question of the day, who is going to win the NFC North and who will win the AFC South? I have Mike Patton. He's the host of the Touring the AFC South podcast. He's going to be on Wise Guys tonight. He's going to come on and break down his predictions for the AFC South this season. So I'm going to have Mike Patton on a little bit later on the show, but I'm going to preview the NFC North. I'm going to also talk about the Denver Broncos. They reached a new contract extension with new quarterback Russell Wilson. So I know Denver Broncos fans are excited about that. And also later on the show, we're going to talk about, you know, the NFC North and break down my predictions for the NFC North because my Green Bay Packers reside in the NFC North. And a lot of people think that the Packers are going to take a step back, but we'll get into that here in a bit. But we're going to begin tonight in the NBA as the Cleveland Cavaliers, they traded for Donovan Mitchell. This happened on Thursday. So in the deal, the Utah Jazz, they received Marketing Abaji and then Colin Sexton, who they agreed to a 4-year, $72 million new deal. And they got 3 unprotected first-round picks and 2 pick swaps. And the Cleveland Cavaliers, they brought in Donovan Mitchell. And most people are talking about the New York Knicks, as the Knicks, they walked away from trade talks for Donovan Mitchell on Monday night. This is reported by ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski. And the trade with the Cavaliers and the Jazz went down on Thursday night. So when you talk about who won this trade between the Utah Jazz and the Cleveland Cavaliers, before I even get to the Utah Jazz and the Cleveland Cavaliers, I want to talk about the New York Knicks real quick because I think the Knicks were the biggest losers in all of this because we were told for many, many weeks that it was a great possibility that Donovan Mitchell would be bringing his talents to New York and teaming up with Julius Randle. And they just, in free agency, recently picked up Jalen Brunson. And I was excited because Donovan Mitchell is from that region. He grew up in that area. And I believe he would have embraced playing at Madison Square Garden just the same way Carmelo Anthony did. You know, some players, they are built to play in major markets like the LA, like the New York, like the Miamis and, you know, the Dallas. And I believe Donovan Mitchell is the caliber of player that was built to play in New York City. And the New York Knicks fan base. They were, thirsty for a star franchise player that they can build their team around. And when you look at Donovan Mitchell as a player so far in his career, he's averaged 24 points per game on 44% shooting. I believe Donovan Mitchell is one of the best young players we have in the NBA. And he's not as great as Dwayne Wade was, but Donovan Mitchell is a great slasher. He can get to the rim. He can hit his mid-range shots. He's also a decent perimeter shooter. And so I believe if you bring in a Donovan Mitchell, you can have a star that can go out and recruit another star to come to New York and play with him. And I believe the New York Knicks made a mistake not bringing in Donovan Mitchell here, because when other stars look at the New York Knicks, who on this New York Knicks team stands out for another star to want to come play with? RJ Barrett, I like his promise. He had a great season last year. He had averaged 20 points per game last year, but he's not no star. Julius Randle on a championship team, he's a third option at best. And then you look at the rest of their team. Mitchell Robinson, Evan Fournier, Emmanuel Quickly, Cam Reddish, Obi Toppin. You look at this Knicks roster, who on their roster, if you're a superstar, would make you want to come play with them? Who? Somebody tell me. And this is why I believe the New York Knicks made a mistake. When you talk about New York Knicks management, Leon Rose, they made a mistake here because they had an opportunity to bring in not a superstar, but a star in Donovan Mitchell to be able to help them recruit another superstar to come to New York to play with Donovan Mitchell. So general manager Scott Perry, Leon Rose, I think they made a mistake here not trading for Donovan Mitchell and bringing him to the Big Apple and play, in Madison Square Garden. I think this was a mistake. I think this is going to be something that the New York Knicks will regret. Again, I think Donovan Mitchell would have been a stepping stone in the right direction for the Knicks organization, because he would have been able to recruit other marquee free agents to come to New York to play alongside him and possibly be formidable in the Eastern Conference. So I think they dropped the ball here. Like I said, before I even get to the Utah Jazz and the Cleveland Cavaliers, I got to call out the New York Knicks organization tonight. Scott Perry, Leon Rose made a mistake. They should have traded for Donovan Mitchell, because you look at their roster now. I don't believe this is a team right now, as currently constructed, is a playoff team. If you bring in Donovan Mitchell and you have Donovan Mitchell paired up with a Julius Randle and a Jalen Brunson, I think that's a team that's a playoff team in the East. I think that's a team that can compete for a playoff spot. No, they're not a top 4 or 5 seed in the Eastern Conference, but they would be a playoff team with Donovan Mitchell on their roster. But now, the best player on this team right now is Julius Randle, and he's not a true number one option. And he's not even a number one option on a playoff contender, let alone a championship contender. So I think they dropped the ball. I look at this team now. Jalen Brunson, I thought they overpaid for Jalen Brunson, but I like Jalen Brunson. I like some of his skills that he put on display in Dallas, playing alongside Luka in that Dallas Mavericks system. But now, when I look at the New York Knicks and my expectations for the Knicks, I don't think the Knicks are going to be a playoff team next year in the East. And I think they made a mistake not trading for Donovan Mitchell. Everybody going to follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. We should have followed Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. Now, I want to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers as they acquired Donovan Mitchell and what it means for them moving forward. I like the fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers have a dynamic backcourt now with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. Last year, I was impressed with Darius Garland. I thought Darius Garland was the best player on the Cleveland Cavaliers team. Last year, Darius Garland, in his third season, he averaged 22 points per game on 46% shooting from the floor, 9 assists per game. So I thought he was a dynamic point guard for the Cleveland Cavaliers. You bring in a dynamic scorer like a Donovan Mitchell. I like that backcourt from a scoring perspective. Now, defensively, I think they're going to struggle because Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, they are not to be confused with key defensive players on championship teams. That's not how they play as players, and that's not the strength, that they are as players. They are offensive players who can score the ball at a high level. So when I look at this Cleveland Cavaliers team now, you look at their starting lineup. They got Darius Garland at the 1. You got Donovan Mitchell at the 2. You got Isaac Okoro at the 3. At the 4, you got Evan Mobley, who had a great rookie season last year. And then you got Jared Allen, who's a great rim protector. I think this is a solid starting 5 for the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference. And I think the Cleveland Cavaliers now, their expectations should be to be a playoff team. With Donovan Mitchell, you cannot be a team that misses the playoffs. You got to be a playoff team come April, May, and June with Donovan Mitchell. And I believe now they could be a 5 or 6 seed in the East. Are they better than the Brooklyn Nets? No. Are they better than the Boston Celtics? No. Are they better than the Milwaukee Bucks? No. But some of those other teams in the East, like the Atlanta Hawks, like the Philadelphia 76ers, like the Chicago Bulls, I think the Cleveland Cavaliers can compete against those teams. Now, the Miami Heat, I think that's a debate. I think the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Miami Heat right now are equivalent because I know how great Jimmy Butler is, and Bam Adebayo is a nice rim protector down there in Miami, and they are well coached. Eric Spoelstra is arguably the best coach in the NBA, and they got Pat Riley up there in the front office. The Miami Heat organization is one of the best organizations we have in the NBA. So I think when you look at the Heat and the Cavs, they're on the same level. But some of those other teams in the East, the Philadelphia 76ers, the Chicago Bulls, the Atlanta Hawks, I would consider taking the Cleveland Cavaliers over them right now. We don't know which James Harden is going to show up next year once the basketball season starts. With the Chicago Bulls, Lonzo Ball is injury prone, and he's dealing with a lot of nagging injuries right now. So I can't believe in the Chicago Bulls. I love Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan as a duo. But you're going to need Lonzo Ball if you're going to be a true contender in the Eastern Conference. And you look at the Atlanta Hawks. They got to the playoffs last year, but they got smoked by the Miami Heat in the first round. They still got Trae Young, who I like. I like Trae Young because he's one of the greatest shooters that we have in the NBA. Resembles a lot of Steph Curry's game, being able to pull up as soon as he passes half court. But like I said, I don't look at that Atlanta Hawks team as being a superior team over the Cleveland Cavaliers right now. I see a lot of people that's saying, well, what was the point of this move? Like, this was a terrible move by the Cleveland Cavaliers. You're not going to be significantly better, than you were without Donovan Mitchell. Like, you're not going to be better this year with him than you were without him. I 100% disagree. And one of the main reasons why I disagree is because Cleveland is not a destination that marquee free agents want to go and play in the NBA season. It's not Miami. It's not LA. It's not the bright lights of New York City. It's not Dallas and that no state income tax. It's Cleveland. It gets cold right around October, November, December, January, February. It gets cold in Cleveland. There ain't no marquee free agents, but that's not named LeBron James, that's signing up to go and play in Cleveland. So I believe for the Cleveland Cavaliers to improve as a team, you have to make these type of trades to improve your roster. This is why I have no issue with the Cleveland Cavaliers trading for Donovan Mitchell, because you were a better basketball team Thursday when you acquired Donovan Mitchell than you were Wednesday before you had Donovan Mitchell. So I have no issue with the Cleveland Cavaliers trading for Donovan Mitchell. Everybody's saying, well, they're not going to be true championship contenders. This was a step in the right direction. You're not going to get a marquee free agent who's a superstar to go to Cleveland and play. It's just not going to happen. Only LeBron James was going to go and sign up back in Cleveland because he knew he had unfinished business once he left Miami. And he's the only superstar that would ever sign in Cleveland. No one wants to be in Cleveland up there in that cold. Give me a break. Everybody go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. Be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram with These Guys Know Sports. Do you believe the Cleveland Cavaliers improved their team with the acquisition of Donovan Mitchell? Call into the show, 513-203-8655, 513-203-8655. Don't forget, I'm going to also have Mike Patton. He's the host of the tour of the AFC South podcast on the show here in a bit. We're going to preview the AFC South and who do we believe is going to be the favorites in the AFC South. But we're going to preview the NFC North at this moment in the show. So when you look at the NFC North, this was the standings from last year. The Packers, they won the NFC North with a 13-4 record. The Minnesota Vikings, they finished the season 8-9. The Bears, they were 6-11. And the Detroit Lions were the Detroit Lions. They finished 3-13-1. So when you look at the Vegas odds and their expectations for the NFC North, the NFC North, this is Vegas odds. They have the Packers winning the NFC North. Go, Pack, go, once again. And then you got the Vikings at plus 225. You got the Lions at plus 900. And you got the Bears at a plus 1,500. Let me read those again. You got the Packers at a minus 60. They are the favorites to win the NFC North. You got the Vikings at a plus 225 in second place. Lions plus 900. Bears plus 1,500 at fourth place. So when I look at the NFC North, let's start off with the Green Bay Packers, the team that has dominated the NFC North. They have, in the last 10 years, the Packers have won the NFC North 7 of those 10 years. Also, the Packers have won the NFC North 3 straight years. And under Matt LaFleur, the Packers are 39-10. So far in Matt LaFleur's young coaching career, the Green Bay Packers have been the best team in the NFC North. And then the other team that's been the realistic competition, because we don't take the Bears or the Lions serious. The only realistic competition for the Packers has been the Minnesota Vikings. That's why I'm so excited for Sunday's matchup in Minnesota. Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers are traveling to Minnesota to take on Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. I can't wait for it. I'm going to break down that game on Thursday night show for my wise picks of the week. But in the NFC North, Vegas has the Packers over under at 11.5. And the only games that the Packers are underdogs in this year are in week 3 at Tampa and week 8 at Buffalo. Those are the only 2 games the Packers are considered underdogs this season. So when I look at the Green Bay Packers, it's a new day in Green Bay. Normally, in years previous, when I talked about the Green Bay Packers, I always led with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers offense because they had the best receiver in the NFL in Davante Adams. So when you talk about best quarterback receiver duos in the NFL, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Tom Brady, Mike Evans, the best quarterback wide receiver duo in the NFL for the last 4 years has been Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams. So every time I talk about the Green Bay Packers, I always talk about Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams in their offense before I get to the defense, because the offense has been the strength of the team. But not this year. The strength and the weakness of the team has reversed. The defense is the strength of the Packers team this year. And that's why I'm so excited as a Packers fan. We all know defense wins championships. Offense sells tickets. And so when you look at this Packers defense, they are led by defensive coordinator Joe Barry in his second year. I like what Joe Barry did last year. I had my questions about Joe Barry heading into last season, but he proved me wrong. And I had to give him credit as the season went along last year, because the Packers were a top 10 defense in the NFL last year. You look at the Packers secondary. They probably have the best secondary in the NFL. You got Jair Alexander, who's an all-pro. You got Eric Stokes. You got Rasul Douglas, who you re-signed in free agency. So I love the Packers secondary. Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes, Rasul Douglas, best secondary in the NFL. In the back end, you still got Adrian Amos. You still got Darnell Savage. And then at the linebacker spot, they re-signed Devondre Campbell in free agency. They drafted Quay Walker out of Georgia, who I love, and I think he's going to make a tremendous impact immediately this year. He's going to be impactful immediately once the season starts. They got great pass rushers in Rashawn Gary and Preston Smith. Up front, you still got Kenny Clark and Dean Lowry. They got Devontae Wyatt, who is also out of Georgia, who I believe is going to make an impact on this defense. And then you brought in Jaron Reed in free agency. I'm telling y'all right now on Wise Guy Sports, on the Worldwide Sports Network, the Packers will have a top 5 defense in the NFL. I'm saying it right now. The Packers will have a top 5 defense in the NFL this season. So I love our defense. I love the moves that the Packers organization made in free agency. And I love the draft, bringing in a Quay Walker, a dynamic linebacker who can make plays on your defense, and a Devontae Wyatt, who some people have compared to Warren Sapp. I love this defense. It is going to be an elite defense. And this has not always been the case in Green Bay. For many, many years, Aaron Rodgers has had to carry the Green Bay Packers. Not this year. They got an elite defense. And I believe at the beginning of the season, while the Packers offense with their unproven receiving core is trying to get into a rhythm and get on the same page with Aaron Rodgers, I think it's going to be the Packers defense that's going to help them in the early part of the season be able to win games. Now, let's go to the Packers offense. Offensively, they are led by the great Aaron Rodgers, the undisputed best quarterback in the NFL. He's the back-to-back NFL MVP. And last year, these were Aaron Rodgers' statistical numbers last year. 37 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 4,115 passing yards. He completed 69% of his passes. Just another great season at the office for the great Aaron Rodgers. Like 37 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I know some quarterbacks who have thrown 4 interceptions in a single game. Aaron Rodgers only had 4 interceptions an entire season. He's also the only player in NFL history with 5 seasons of at least 35 passing touchdowns. Only player in NFL history with 5 seasons of at least 35 passing touchdowns. And so one thing about Aaron Rodgers is we know that he's going to have the Packers in a position to compete for a Super Bowl year in and year out. But for Aaron Rodgers, and this is me coming as an analyst and a fan, it's all about the postseason. All about the postseason. There is no excuse for Aaron Rodgers to not have the Green Bay Packers back into the Super Bowl picture this season. It's a shame that the great Aaron Rodgers has not only won 1 Super Bowl, but only has 1 Super Bowl on his resume. It's a shame. And as great as Aaron Rodgers is, this is me taking all biases out of it. Aaron Rodgers needs to win another Super Bowl. It has to happen. I think as a talent, Aaron Rodgers is the top 5 quarterback of all time. I really, really do. I believe that. I think when you look at Aaron Rodgers and how he's performed, I think Aaron Rodgers is better than Peyton Manning. I know everybody got the perception out there and they talk about Peyton Manning, and I love Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was an all-time great. Peyton Manning won 5 NFL MVPs, and Peyton Manning is a 2-time Super Bowl champion. But if you look at Peyton Manning's playoff numbers, Aaron Rodgers has better playoff numbers than Peyton Manning. Aaron Rodgers has less interceptions thrown than Peyton Manning. Aaron Rodgers has a higher completion percentage than Peyton Manning. So I think when you look at their careers in totality, Aaron Rodgers is better than Peyton Manning. I've been screaming this for years, but everybody loves Peyton Manning. So nobody wants to talk about this. We love Peyton Manning. So don't you dare say that Aaron Rodgers is better than Peyton Manning, Trey, because a lot of y'all out there don't like Aaron Rodgers. I don't like my quarterback. I understand. Aaron Rodgers is one of those individuals that he's arrogant. You know, he's arrogant and he's aloof, as they say. So I understand why some people get rubbed the wrong way by Aaron Rodgers, but it is undeniable how great of a quarterback Aaron Rodgers has been in his career. I'm gonna give you somebody else Aaron Rodgers is better than. He's better than Drew Brees. Drew Brees has never won an NFL MVP at any point in his career. Also, in the postseason, Drew Brees didn't have the success that Aaron Rodgers has had in his career. He hasn't. So Aaron Rodgers is better than both Drew Brees and Peyton Manning. But I think the standard that we hold Aaron Rodgers to is similar to the standard that we hold LeBron James to. Like, we saw LeBron James so many years get to the NBA Finals. I think LeBron had like 9 straight NBA Finals appearances, and he didn't win all of those Finals appearances. He lost a lot of those Finals, so we hold it against LeBron, not realizing getting to an NBA Finals is hard enough. That is already difficult, getting to the NBA Finals. But we always judge LeBron because he came up short in the NBA Finals. It's the same thing that happens with Aaron Rodgers. Same exact thing. Aaron Rodgers has been to multiple NFC championship games in his career. He's only won one NFC championship game. And I agree that in the NFC championship game, Aaron Rodgers has not played his best football. But folks walk around here and they pretend like Aaron Rodgers has been awful in the NFC championship. And that's just not the case. But he's getting to the NFC championship. If other quarterbacks like Matt Ryan, like a Ryan Tannehill, like a Phillip Rivers, if they were getting to multiple conference championship games, we would be looking at them in a different way and giving them credit for getting to a conference championship. But because it's Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Rodgers is judged on a different standard, we always criticize Aaron Rodgers for losing in the NFC championship game. It comes with the territory of being greatness. That's what it comes with it. But offensively, when we look at the Green Bay Packers, I love the running back duo with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. I think that's the best running back duo in the NFL. I think that is the strength of their offense, especially considering they got a lot of unproven skill position players. You're going to have to rely on Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon a lot this season. Not only running the football, but they're going to be expected to catch the ball out of the backfield as well. I think Aaron Jones is going to have a great season, not only running the football, but also being able to catch the ball out of the backfield. He's a matchup nightmare for opposing defensive coordinators. So I like their running back duo with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. You look at the receivers, they're unproven. They're unproven. You look at Alan Lazard. He's dealing with an undisclosed injury right now, but hopefully at some point he returns and he can play. I hope he's in the lineup this week against Minnesota. I hope it's nothing serious. But you look at their receiving corps. Alan Lazard, Sammy Watkins, he's injury prone. Randall Cobb is at the end of his career. Father Time is undefeated. He's a reliable target for Aaron Rodgers, though. Like, I believe Randall Cobb is one of those players that's very few that Aaron Rodgers actually trusts. We know he trusted Jordy Nelson. He trusted James Jones. He trusted Devontae Adams. He trusts Randall Cobb. So Randall Cobb is a reliable target in this Packers offense. But Randall Cobb is over the hill, and we have to see what he has left in the tank. You got Amari Rodgers. He had a disappointing rookie season. He only had like 4 receptions for 45 receiving yards. So he had a disappointing rookie season last year. So he's going to be expected to improve in his sophomore season. You got rookies in Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson who are unproven, and they're going to have to play well in order for the Packers to meet expectations and win the NFC North. You're going to have great seasons from Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs. I like Romeo Doubs. I've been hearing a lot about Romeo Doubs up there in Green Bay and how he has had a tremendous training camp. And he was pretty good also in preseason action with Jordan Love. If he's doing good with Jordan Love, imagine what he could do with Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball. I love the Packers offensive line. Once they get back David Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins, I believe the Green Bay Packers offensive line will be one of the best in the NFL. Now, David Bakhtiari, he already announced that it's a good chance he's going to play in week 1 against the Minnesota Vikings. So he said he's good to go. Elton Jenkins, he's still rehabbing from a season-ending injury last year. So if they can get back Elton Jenkins and David Bakhtiari, two of their best offensive linemen on this team, they're going to be in good shape. You got Josh Myers at center, John Runyan at guard, Jake Hansen as well. So I like the Packers offensive line. The biggest question for the Green Bay Packers is going to be the unproven skill position players. If someone can step up in this Packers offense and be a reliable target for Aaron Rodgers, the Green Bay Packers will be just fine because the defense is going to be a top 5 defense in the NFL. I got them on my fantasy team, so I'm definitely excited about that. And you got the best coach in the NFC North in Matt LaFleur leading your team, and you got Aaron Rodgers. So, I think they'll be just fine. This is an interesting stat about Aaron Rodgers before we move on and talk about the Minnesota Vikings. This was a post that I seen. It was a question that says, which happens first for Rodgers? Will he throw 500 touchdowns or finally throw 100 interceptions? He currently has 449 touchdowns and 93 interceptions. Which one is going to happen first? Will it be 500 touchdowns or 100 interceptions? Crazy to think, ain't it? Like, that's a 5-to-1 touchdown interception ratio for his career. The dude is transcendent at the quarterback position. Now, let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings and my expectations for the Minnesota Vikings. The over-under with the win totals for the Minnesota Vikings are 9.5. Oh, real quick, before I move on and talk about Minnesota, over-under for the Green Bay Packers, 11.5. I'm rolling with the over. Go, Pack, go. I'm not going to roll with the under. I'm rolling with the over. Go, Pack, go. Packers will be 12-5 at worst. At worst, they'll be 12-5. So I'm going with the over and the over-under win totals for the Green Bay Packers. Now, Minnesota. Let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings. Over-under for the Minnesota Vikings is at 9.5. They are led by new head coach Kevin O'Connell. And I actually like this pickup by the Minnesota Vikings bringing in Kevin O'Connell because Kevin O'Connell, in his career, he is an offensive guy. I mean, last year he was at the LA Rams. He was the offensive coordinator. Then a year before that, he was the offensive coordinator in Washington. And he was also the quarterback's coach and passing game coordinator. So he knows his offense. That's his expertise. And I think now that he is the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, I believe this is going to help Kirk Cousins. I think one of the main issues with the Minnesota Vikings in previous years has been Mike Zimmer was the head coach in previous years. Mike Zimmer is a defensive mind. That's his number one expertise as a head coach. That's his strength. That's what he knows. I don't think Mike Zimmer and Kirk Cousins had the best relationship when Zimmer was the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. I don't think they had the best relationship. And I think that was a part of the reason why the Minnesota Vikings were inconsistent. They were inconsistent. We all know they got talent. They got talent, and they got a good quarterback in Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is not elite, but Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. I mean, last year, Kirk Cousins, he had 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 4,221 passing yards, quarterback rating 103.1. So I look at Kirk Cousins as being a good quarterback. I think you can win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins if things go your way in a playoff run. I really, really do. I look at Kirk Cousins as being on the same level as a Derek Carr, as a Dak Prescott, on a good day, a Ryan Tannehill. I look at Kirk Cousins as being on that same level. Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott, and Derek Carr are all better than Ryan Tannehill. I know everybody be like, why you be throwing Ryan Tannehill in here? I think Ryan Tannehill at his best on some days is good. He's good. And I think Kirk Cousins is that caliber of quarterback. I think you can win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins. I love the Minnesota Vikings skill position players. You got Justin Jefferson, a top 10 receiver in the NFL. You got Adam Thielen, who I believe is the best second option when it comes to receivers on his team. Like when you look at the NFL and second receivers on their team, Adam Thielen is the best second receiver you can possibly have on your team. You got KJ Osborne. At tight end, you got Irv Smith Jr. And then at running back, you got Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook is one of the best running backs in the NFL. He can also catch the ball out of the backfield. So I like the Minnesota Vikings skill position players. They got better skill position players than the Packers do. Running back is up for debate. Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones. I probably would say that Dalvin Cook is better than Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, but Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon is a dynamic duo. Difference between the Packers and the Vikings is the Packers have a significant upgrade at quarterback with Aaron Rodgers compared to the Vikings with Kirk Cousins. But I like the Minnesota Vikings offense. At center, you got Garrett Bradbury, right guard Ed Ingram, right tackle Brian O'Neill, left tackle Christian Darrisaw. They got a decent offensive line. Decent offensive line. Nothing that's great, but they're decent. They're decent. Now you look at the Minnesota Vikings defense. And their defense is led by defensive coordinator Ed Donatell. And defensively, they got Dalvin Tomlinson as a pass rusher. You got Harrison Phillips at nose tackle. Danielle Hunter, who's been a nice pass rusher in this Vikings defense. Their linebackers are really, really nice with Hunter, Eric Kendricks, Jordan Hicks. They've signed Zadarius Smith, former Packer, in free agency. Let's see what he has left in the tank. And then your defensive backs are average. You got Patrick Peterson. Want to still see what he has left in the tank. Harrison Smith is a nice safety in their back end. So I like this Minnesota Vikings team. I really, really do. I look at their over-under. I could see the Vikings winning. I think it's going to go under, though. 9.5, I would say the Minnesota Vikings finished literally right there at 9.5. I would say they finished 9-8. I got them being one game better this year than they were last year. I got them finishing 9-8. I like their team, but it's not a team that's a team that wows me. I'm not like sitting up here like, man, they got one of the best rosters in the NFL. I like their roster. It's a good roster. It's not a great roster. So I got them finishing 9-8. And if they exceed expectations, they could possibly finish 10-7 or 11-6, give or take. Everybody go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. Be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram with These Guys Know Sports. Let's transition. Let's talk about the Chicago Bears and my expectations for the Chicago Bears. They're over under a 6.5 games. So they brought in new head coach Matt Eberflus. And Matt Eberflus, he is a defensive guy. He previously was a defensive coordinator with the Colts for 3 years. He also was a linebackers coach in Dallas. He was a linebackers coach in Cleveland. So he has some college experience as well on his resume. So Eberflus is a defensive guy, right? I look at this Chicago Bears offense. They're led by Justin Fields. I like Justin Fields. I thought when he was at the Ohio State University, Justin Fields was sensational. Let me look at his college numbers. 67 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, He completed 68% of his passes. So I thought he was a great quarterback at Ohio State. And then last year in his rookie season, he wasn't impressive, but I saw flashes of Justin Fields. And I said, okay, I could see the ceiling being high for Justin Fields because he has high potential. Last year, he only had 7 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He had 1,870 passing yards. I said he should have been the day one starter last year, week 1. Matt Nagy was the head coach of the Chicago Bears. It was a mess in Chicago last year. I know Bears fans in the Windy City are sick and tired of the Chicago Bears not meeting expectations. I mean, Chicago is a football town. I know Michael Jordan won 6 NBA championships for the Chicago Bulls, but make no mistake about it, Chicago is a football town. It's not a basketball town. It's a football town. I think about the Chicago Bears in the 60s, 70s with Mike Ditka, and they had so many great teams, back in the day with Walter Payton. And then even, in the years when the Chicago Bears had horrible quarterback play like Rex Grossman, they always had a solid defense. They always had nice linebackers like Brian Urlacher, like Lance Briggs. They always was a team that exceeded expectations, even in spite of having terrible quarterback play. They've had terrible quarterbacks in this organization. So I think when you look at Justin Fields, Chicago Bears fans need to be happy that they have Justin Fields now because you can really build your team around Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields has the potential to be one of the best young quarterbacks that we have in the NFL. We talk about Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Dak Prescott. I think when Justin Fields learns the quarterback position, because that's what you have to do when you're a rookie and in your sophomore season, you have to learn how to be an NFL quarterback. Once he learns the NFL, I believe Justin Fields can be a quarterback that the Chicago Bears can build around for future seasons to come in Chicago. I think they can build around him for the next 20 years. I really, really believe in Justin Fields. So I want to get that out there. I like Justin Fields a lot, and I think he has tremendous promise. But I don't like his skill position players that he's going to be throwing the ball to. They got Darnell Mooney, Byron Pringle, Velvet Jones Jr., Cole Kmet. I mean, who are these dudes? I don't like his skill position players at all. They let go of Allen Robinson in free agency. I like their running back in David Montgomery. He is a Cincinnati native. Shout out to David Montgomery. I'm hoping he have a great season this year. David, come on the show if you want to on Wise Guy Sports, man. I like David Montgomery a lot in their backfield, but I don't like his skill position players. And in the offensive line, I think is a big question mark. They got Lucas Patrick. They got Tevion Jenkins, Riley Reef. I mean, they're okay. They're decent. They also, by the way, in free agency, they brought in Equanimeous St. Brown. He's a former Green Bay Packer. So the Bears, they always seem to figure out a way to sign players that the Packers no longer want. I mean, St. Brown used to be in Green Bay. He didn't produce much for us, so we let him go. And the Bears, of course, picked him up. So, they get sloppy seconds when it comes to him. And I like St. Brown. He's not a horrible player, but he didn't produce much in the Packers offense. So I don't really like the Bears skill position players. I like Justin Fields, though. They got to give him more to work with. Defensively, they still got Raekwon Smith. Earlier in the offseason, he requested to be traded out of Chicago. He took it back. He's going to be in Chicago this year. Up front, you got Angelo Blackson, Justin Jones. Still got Robert Quinn. I like Robert Quinn a lot. In their back end, they got Eddie Jackson, who's nice. Kyler Gordon is decent. Jalen Johnson. So their defense is okay. It's okay. I think you can put up some points against that Bears defense. The over-under for the Chicago Bears is 6.5. I'm going under. I don't think they're going to win over 6 games. I think they're going to finish 5-12, maybe 6-11 at best. So I got them going. I got it going under for the Chicago Bears. Now, let's go to the Detroit Lions. The over-under for the Detroit Lions is 6.5 as well. And the Detroit Lions, they are led by Dan Campbell. And Dan Campbell, I actually think he did pretty good in his rookie season. In his rookie season, as being first-year head coach in Detroit, Dan Campbell, his record was 3-13-1. So they won 20% of their games. They were last year in the NFC North. And they traded with the LA Rams last year and brought in Jared Goff. And Jared Goff is one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. Last year, this was Jared Goff's stats. Jared Goff, he had 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He had 3,245 passing yards. But at his best, at his core, Jared Goff is a game manager. We all know this. Jared Goff is a game manager. And I actually like some of the Lions' skill position players. At running back, they still got Jamal Williams. He's a former Packer. I like him at running back. You got DeAndre Swift as well in the backfield. At receiver, you got DJ Sharp. You got Josh Reynolds and Amon-Ra St. Brown. And then at tight end, they got one of the best tight ends in the NFL in TJ Hockenson. So I like him a lot. I really, really do. I like some of their skill position players. I do. But they got Jared Goff throwing them the football. And I don't expect Jared Goff to be able to get this team in contention for a playoff spot. I'm not going to spend much time talking about the Detroit Lions. I don't think they're a playoff team. Look at their over-unders at 6.5. I got them in under as well. I don't think they're going to win over six games. They'll finish 6-11, 5-12, similar to the Chicago Bears. So when I look at the NFC North as a whole, the Chicago Bears and Detroit Lions will be irrelevant. It's going to come down to the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings. Who are you going to take with the money on the line and the chips to the front of the table? Kirk Cousins or Aaron Rodgers? I'm going to bet on that bad man that is Aaron Rodgers. I think the Green Bay Packers are going to win the NFC North. I do believe the Minnesota Vikings will compete for a wild card spot. I think the Packers are going to finish either 12-5 or 13-4 again. I got Minnesota again finishing 9-8. At best, they'll finish 10-7. I think they got a shot at a wild card spot in the NFC. I really, really do. I think the Packers are going to still win the division, and I think the Packers are going to prove that in Week 1, Sunday afternoon in Minnesota. Everybody go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. Make sure to follow Wise Guys Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. Let's transition to Denver, and let's talk about the Denver Broncos. As the Denver Broncos, they recently paid Russell Wilson a new deal and gave him a new contract extension. Russell Wilson agreed to a 5-year, $245 million extension with the Denver Broncos. It includes $165 million guaranteed. The deal ties Russell Wilson to Denver for 7 years, and he's going to make $296 million over the course of his contract, according to Adam Schefter. So my initial reaction to this deal was, I think this was the right move by the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are a team who have had quarterbacks the likes of Trevor Siemian, Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock. So it was a no-brainer to sign Russell Wilson when you traded for him. They gave up the farm for Russell Wilson, and rightfully so. You look at the AFC West. In the AFC West alone, you got Patrick Mahomes, you got Justin Herbert, you got Derek Carr, rest of the AFC. You got Joe Burrow, you got Lamar Jackson. In the AFC East, you got Josh Allen. So if you are the Denver Broncos, you know, in order to be true Super Bowl contenders, you have to pay Russell Wilson and pay him what he demands. Because you look at Russell Wilson, so far in his career, Russell Wilson has been in the NFL, and he's only had a losing season one time in his career. One time. That was last year. He finished 6-8. So he only played in 14 games last year, but the Seattle Seahawks were awful last year. They weren't competing for a playoff spot. And that was the only losing season in Russell Wilson's career. And for his career, Russell Wilson, 292 touchdowns, 87 interceptions, 37,059 passing yards. He's completed 65% of his passes. So Russell Wilson is an upgrade over all of the previous quarterbacks that the Denver Broncos have had since Peyton Manning. You got to pay Russell Wilson. They had no choice but to pay Russ because they know in order to be true Super Bowl contenders, you got to have Russell Wilson locked up, and he's going to be the leader of your team moving forward. Not only that, Russell Wilson is not only a great quarterback in the NFL, he's a great leader for your team. We always talk about when these owners pay players in the NFL, they're not only paying for the caliber of production that they're going to get from that particular player, they're also paying for the leadership. And can you be trusted? That's what's important here. Russell Wilson can be trusted by this Denver Broncos organization. And so I believe this is a move that you have to make. This is a move that you look at Russell Wilson as being, he's one of those guys who he's the first one in, last guy to leave. And we know he got a lot of other priorities that he has to focus on with Sierra, with his family. But Russell Wilson, during football season, prioritizes football first. And if you are an organization, Russell Wilson is the type of player that you don't mind giving money to because you can trust Russell Wilson. He's not going to get into no off-the-field trouble. You know he's going to be dedicated to your team, being able to win football games, and he's going to maximize the potential by the rest of your players on your team because they see that guy being the first one in and last guy out. And you see that from your quarterback, you're going to want to pay him, and you're going to want to get better as a team. So I think the Denver Broncos had to pay Russ, knowing the competition that they're going to be facing when it comes to quarterback in the conference. And then again, you're going to have him locked up too. He's about 40 years old. I think he said he want to play another 5 years, 6 years. So you got Russ locked up for the next 5 or 6 years till he's 40. And more than likely, he's going to retire a Denver Bronco. We know Denver is a great destination for veteran quarterbacks like Peyton Manning. There was reports about Aaron Rodgers at one point when he had his rift with the Green Bay Packers organization, how he would have went to Denver and played. They got Nathaniel Hackett now, who's a new first-year head coach. I think it's going to help Nathaniel Hackett a lot having a quarterback like a Russell Wilson lead his team, because now Nathaniel Hackett can focus on the other parts of his team because he knows offensively Russell Wilson will make sure everything is in order. So I think it's going to help the new first-year head coach Nathaniel Hackett out a lot having Russell Wilson in Denver. So everybody go follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. Be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. Now, I'm going to preview the AFC West on Thursday night show because tonight is about the NFC North and the AFC South. But, you know, real quick, before I even move on, when I look at the Denver Broncos, I think having Russell Wilson on their team, they are legit contenders in the AFC West now. If they don't have a Russell Wilson on their team, when you got to go up against Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Derek Carr, you have no chance at being able to win the AFC West. No chance. So I think you locking in Russell Wilson, it gives your team a puncher's chance to compete in the AFC West and in the AFC as a conference overall. So I'm going to give my predictions for the AFC West on Thursday, but I definitely believe that the Denver Broncos are a better team with Russell Wilson than they were in previous years without him. Everybody go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. Make sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. He's a columnist at Nashville Voice, also a writer and reporter at Pro Player Insiders, and a writer at Sports Awakening and host of the Touring the AFC South podcast. I want to welcome to the show Mike Patton. What's up, Mike? How are you, brother?
What's going on, man? You can throw on there sports history in black as well for the NABJ website, Black News and Views too, man. I do a lot, man.
Okay, yeah, man, you got a lot going on, man. I love it, man. But let's start off, man. Let's get right to it, man. Let's talk about the NFC South. And so last year in the NFC South, Mike, the Titans, they finished 12-5. They lost in the divisional round of the playoffs to the Bengals. The Colts last year, they finished 9-8. They lost a Week 18 matchup to the Jacksonville Jaguars. They missed the playoffs. Texans finished 4-13. Jaguars finished 3-14. And so I want to read that Vegas odds real quick. They got, for the winning division, they got the Colts favorite. Then they got Tennessee. They got Jacksonville. And they got the Texans. So let's start off with the Colts. They brought in Matt Ryan. They traded Carson Wentz to Washington. Do you believe the Colts trading for Matt Ryan is a move that will help them become a playoff team in the AFC?
I definitely think that move will allow them to be a playoff team this year. With the addition of Matt Ryan, you have a smarter quarterback in terms of thinking the game. Yeah. Doesn't take as many chances, takes advantage of what the defense gives him, and is a coach on the field. Carson Wentz may have more ability, but he doesn't think the game quite as much as Matt Ryan. So that alone is going to make your team and offense better.
So when it comes to Matt Ryan as a quarterback, Mike, for his career, he got 367 touchdowns, 170 interceptions, 59,735 passing yards, completing 66% of his passes. He won NFL MVP back in 2016, came up short in the Super Bowl after being up 28-3. But do you believe that he has something left in the tank as an individual to have a bounce back season in Indianapolis?
Well, he definitely has something left in the tank. I think his MVP days are definitely long gone.
Really?
But he definitely, yes. I don't think he's an MVP caliber quarterback anymore, but he's a solid quarterback when it comes to leading your team. And in regards to that, I definitely think he has something left in the tank. The question is, how many years does he have left in the tank? I think he at least has one. But past that, I can't give you a definite answer for what he has left in the tank, to be honest.
Yeah, because I always thought Matt Ryan, Mike, he's not elite like an Aaron Rodgers or a Tom Brady, or even a Patrick Mahomes. But I always thought Matt Ryan was a good quarterback that you could win a Super Bowl with, kind of like Matthew Stafford, Russell Wilson. Like, I don't think they are necessarily elite, but I think they are good quarterbacks who you can win a Super Bowl with if certain things go your way. So I think he's definitely an upgrade, at quarterback over Carson Wentz, especially because last year I thought Carson Wentz turned the ball over way too much, and that was one of the issues that the Colts had.
Well, I would say this. It wasn't necessarily that he turned the ball over way too much because he didn't have a ton of interceptions. The thing was he had untimely turnovers.
Yeah.
Meaning they were just at the wrong times. Give you a prime example of that. I mean, he throws the ball to the Titans when they're trying to, win the game in overtime. He throws the ball and basically Kevin Byard basically baits him into that throw. Kicks that pass off. I mean, he makes some just decisions that make you scratch your head when it comes to winning time, like he's trying to be the hero instead of trying to make the right play. So that aspect of Carson Wentz, is gone and moved on to the Washington Commanders, and now maybe they have a smarter quarterback in terms of those type of situations in Matt Ryan, which will kind of help them stay on schedule, perhaps.
Agree. Carson Wentz actually only had 7 interceptions last year, but he did have a few fumbles. And you're right about the horrible turnovers at bad times for the Colts last year. Now, obviously, Mike, this team is led by running back Jonathan Taylor, who is arguably the best running back in the NFL. And he had over 1,000 yards rushing in the first 2 years of his career, 29 touchdowns so far as well. How does Jonathan Taylor's performance impact this entire Colts offense?
Well, it definitely impacts the offense because it puts everybody in positions to succeed. If the running game is working, of course, that's provided the offensive line is healthy, Quentin Nelson, I want to point that. But, it puts everything in perspective where the offensive line doesn't feel pressure to be a standout pass blocking offensive line, which, to be honest, they really aren't a standout pass blocking offense. It puts the play action pass in there to give those tight ends extra room to get open, give you wide receivers extra space across the middle of the field and behind the linebackers as well. So it kind of everything works through Jonathan Taylor because it gives everyone else that little additional edge they need to kind of get open or make plays on their own. Yeah. So that's where I would say, Jonathan Taylor helps and affects that entire offense.
They got nice receivers in Michael Pittman and Paris Campbell. I like Alec Pierce. He played at the University of Cincinnati here in Cincy, with Luke Fickell. And so they got Mo Alley Cox at tight end. Who do you believe will be Matt Ryan's most reliable target this season?
Honestly, it's going to be Michael Pittman Jr. by default because, honestly, I know you mentioned Paris Campbell, but Paris Campbell can't stay healthy. Yeah, that's the biggest thing with him. If he could stay healthy, I'd be like, okay, cool, you can count on him. But until he does that, I can't really say, hey, he's a reliable target. As far as Alec Pierce, he's still growing and has some things to learn. So I can't necessarily say he'll be a dependable target. So by default, it'll be Michael Pittman Jr. And Mo Alley Cox. As much as they paid him to stay there in Indianapolis, but has he really been a guy that's just like, okay, cool, he's going to be a reliable pass catching guy? I mean, he's not necessarily that guy. I would say the guy behind him and Jelani Woods is the guy that eventually will take over and be the starting tight end. But I don't know if it'll be this year, but definitely will be next year in my opinion.
Yeah, Kylan Grandson as well at tight end on that depth chart too. So, we'll see if he can also produce for them. Now let's switch sides of the ball. Let's talk about their defense. They're led by defensive coordinator Gus Bradley, and they got Shaquille Leonard at linebacker. They signed Stephon Gilmore in free agency. They still got DeVorest Buckner, and they got Ndakwe up front as well. And they got one of the best slot corners in the NFL in Kenny Moore. What's your expectations for this Colts defense?
Well, expectation is for them to be top 10 at least this year. The biggest thing that's going to contribute to that, I would say, they do have the pieces. In Ndakwe, you have Kwity Paye, you have DeForest Buckner on the line. You have Shaquille Leonard, you have Okirike at linebacker. You have, corners, Stephon Gilmore, Kenny Moore, two of the top corners around. Only question I would have is the safety spot and putting pressure on the quarterback. Because those are the two things that are going to be in question this year. I mean, you have a rookie that potentially is going to be starting at one of the safety spots. You don't really have a wealth of talent at the safety spot, just to be honest. Yeah. And Kwity Paye, he's still trying to figure it out. Some say he figured it out towards the end of last year, but we got to see. And Ndakwe, I know he's talented, but he's been on 4 teams in the past 4 or 5 years.
Only with the Raiders last year.
He was with the Raiders last year. Yeah, he played for the defensive coordinator that actually is for the Colts now, and Gus Bradley. So that ought to be interesting in its own right, being that he's playing in the same defense for the second year in a row. So that's the questions I have with that defense, but they do have the potential to be a top 5 defense, top 10 at the worst.
Colts over and under is 9.5. Are you taking the over or the under for the Colts win totals this season? What you got their final record being this year?
I'm taking over, and I've got them at 11-6 this year to win the division.
Okay, all right. Well, let's talk about the Tennessee Titans. They finished the season obviously into the Bengals in the division around the playoffs. They're led by Ryan Tannehill. Last year he had 21 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. It was awful, in the playoff game against the Bengals. He definitely in my opinion, he cost the Titans a berth in the AFC Championship last year. What are your expectations for Ryan Tannehill this year, Mike?
Honestly, just kind of I got the opportunity to go out to training camp and also to a OTA.
Okay.
And got a chance to see him perform, and he talked a lot about how the end of last year had attacks on him mentally. He actually did go to therapy, to be honest, to actually talk about it, go through it, and kind of get rid of it going into this year. And so he seems kind of a little bit different in terms of how he's carrying himself.
Okay.
So I would say that going into this year, I kind of expect him to kind of revert back to the Tannehill that took over for Marcus Mariota way back when.
Yeah.
And I don't think he'll be fully that guy, but I think he'll take over, take back to that guy as opposed to being the guy we saw last year who was, making mistakes, did have a bad playoff game overall. So I think that'll be more the guy that you expect to see from him. And the thing that's also going to be interesting is looking at the variety of weapons that he has. Now, I know people have talked about the Tennessee Titans. They really don't have any weapons. They got rid of AJ Brown via trade to the Philadelphia Eagles. Julio Jones, they let him go in the offseason. And who do they have? They have Robert Woods, and they have Treylon Burks and Kyle Phillips and all these different guys. But I'm like, watching these guys work, it's good because you can't focus on one guy, and all of these guys work and can be options to have games.
And that actually led me to my next question there, Mike, because I'm actually one of those people that has questions about that Titans receiving core. I mean, they traded AJ Brown to the Philadelphia Eagles. They traded for Robert Woods from the Rams. They got Treylon Burks, rookie receiver out of Arkansas. They got Nick Westbrook as well in the slot. Who do you believe will emerge as their number one receiver now that AJ Brown is in Philly? Like, who you think is going to be that number one reliable target for Ryan Tannehill?
Well, honestly, after talking to I did a Titans preview last week, talking to Teron Davenport, who actually covers the team, and he brought up a very valuable point, a very great point, is that there may not be a number one receiver on this team. The reason that's a good thing, though, is because you may have one guy step up one week, one guy step up the next week, and you have a variety of different weapons that can jump out there and do different things.
Yeah.
So, in all actuality, there's not a number one wide receiver on the team, but that's not necessarily a bad thing either for them because they have actually more weapons on this team than they had last year. Last year, you had, of course you have Derrick Henry, but you had AJ Brown, you had Julio Jones, and then Nick Westbrook-Kenny, and after that you really couldn't name anybody. This year you have Robert Woods, you have Treylon Burks, you have Kyle Phillips, you have Nick Westbrook-Kenny, you got Racing McMath when he becomes healthy, potentially a Josh Gordon if he's signed to the 53-man roster, which he's on the practice squad now. You have Derrick Henry, you have Hilliard out the backfield. You have a Hooper at tight end, a Chigakwanku, a rookie out of Maryland at tight end. You have a lot of different variety of weapons for the Titans this year offensively and a lot of different versatile weapons as well. So that's where I could say, to those that are like, oh, the wide receiver core, I've got questions. I mean, there was a lot of questions last year too. If you want to be honest, there was a lot of questions besides the third wide receiver until Westbrook-Kenny kind of proved himself, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. Now, when you look at Derrick Henry, obviously many people believe that you can make a legit argument that Derrick Henry is the best running back in the NFL. Mike, he missed 9 games last year because of a broken bone in his foot. He still had almost 1,000 yards rushing. And so this is kind of a two-part question. One, how important is Derrick Henry to this Titans offense being able to flourish? And also, do you believe as the season goes along, do you believe Mike Vrabel should try to, dial back some of his carries so you can have him for the latter part of the season once we get into December and January so he can be fresh come playoff time?
Well, the first part of the question, he's very important to this offense because they are a run-first offense. They've been that way going all the way back to the Eddie George days. I mean, they had a couple years where McNair was putting up numbers, throwing the football, and where he was actually a co-MVP with Peyton Manning. But other than that, they have been a run-first football team from the Eddie Georges to the DeMarco Murrays, the Chris Johnsons, and the Derrick Henrys, and so on and so forth. So Derrick Henry is vital to this offense because, like Jonathan Taylor, he is the engine behind the offense. He makes everything a little easier for everyone else around him. And, it's ironic that both of these teams at the top of the division kind of mirror each other. But, definitely that's he's very important to the offense. And, he's going to be key to a lot of different things they do. It's going to be interesting also to see this year how the versatile pieces, they put those in motion around Derrick Henry. And if he's always the key to everything as the season goes on. That'll be key to watch. As far as the second question, dialing things back, Derrick Henry is a volume running back. Derrick Henry's not a guy that's going to, give you 10 carries and he's going to go for 115 yards. He's not a guy like Chris Johnson that could give you like 10, 15 carries and then go for 160 yards and then call it a day.
Yeah.
He's a guy that wears and wears and wears on you because those 2 or 3 yard runs in the first half turn into 6, 7, 10 yards, and then that big one in the second half.
Yeah.
You notice most of his long runs always come in the second half of the game where teams are tired of tackling him.
Absolutely.
So to me, I would say they're probably not going to dial back on his carries. Sure, it would be nice to throw Hilliard in there, and they do have a guy from Michigan this year as a backup running back. His name is escaping me right now. I don't know why. But anyway, they do have a lot more depth in the running back room, so they can potentially give him breaks, and they do have a gentleman that can come in there and do some of the same things that he does. Maybe not quite as big as Derrick Henry, which, by the way, he is bigger this year from a lot of different reports, and from what I've seen, he definitely does look bigger. Wow. Yes, he looks bigger. So that'll be interesting in its own right. And plus, he's not the most. I wouldn't say he's unhappy, but he's not. He feels like he's got something to prove. It just seems like he's got something to prove this year more than anything, which is different from previous years with Derrick Henry and the success he's had. So, that part will be interesting, but I don't expect the dial back of carries to happen. I don't expect that.
Wow, man, that's going to be interesting to see, man. A motivated Derrick Henry. Oh, it's going to be scary for some opposing defense.
Not that he isn't motivated. I don't want to put it out there that he's not motivated, but he's got a little more extra incentive, I should say.
Yeah, playing with a chip on the shoulder. I definitely understand that. I think you're probably talking about Hassan Haskins from Michigan.
Haskins.
Yeah. So I think he's on that depth chart as well. So do you expect him to be able to have an impact on the Titans offense this year?
I don't expect him to have a big impact on the offense because Hilliard is the backup running back. Hilliard's the guy that's going to come in. I don't expect him to take over series or anything like that, but coming on third down, maybe run a few things out of the backfield, stuff like that, maybe a draw, things like that. But Derrick Henry's the man of this offense at the running back position, and everyone else is going to fall in line. I believe Haskins has the ability to actually do things that Derrick Henry does in terms of lining up there. But the caveat to that is he's actually proven to be a better pass catcher than the Titans, I think, may have realized.
Okay, because I think actually last year, if I'm not mistaken, Haskins, he had a great game in the season finale against Ohio State for the Michigan Wolverines. I think he had a great, outstanding game last year in that game. So let's talk about the offensive line, Mike. And so they got one of the better offensive lines in the NFL, led by center Ben Jones. They got guard Aaron Brewer and right guard Nate Davis, left tackle Taylor Lewan, and right tackle Nicholas Pettit. So what are your expectations for the Tennessee Titans offensive line this year?
I would expect I would say this. It's definitely a little bit different offensive line because, of course, gone are the vets up front. They definitely lost a vet up front to Buffalo Bills this offseason. Petit Ferrer beat out Dylan Radunz to gain the starting right tackle spot. He is a rookie from our left tackle spot. I'm sorry. He's a rookie from Ohio State. So he actually it ended up beating Dylan Raditz out at that position to get that spot. So it's going to be a little bit different. Aaron Brewer's definitely different than Saffold is what I was getting to. But
Yeah.
Saffold got released this offseason and he's playing for Buffalo Bills. But he's smaller than Saffold, but he gets in there and gets little fits. I was listening to Teron Davenport again, who covers the team and does a great job. He actually was talking about the differences between Saffold and Brewer. And Saffold is a guy that's just a mauler, going to get in there and blow people out of holes. Brewer's more a smaller guy, a positional guy that actually gets in there and walls people off for holes. So the hole might not be quite as big, but it's still a hole there. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch to see how Derrick Henry adjusts to a different set of people blocking for him and how Petit Ferrer deals with being a guy that's more than likely going to be targeted because he is a rookie playing tackle in the NFL. So that'll be interesting to watch. I think they'll still be solid, but they're going to have their moments, in my opinion.
He's a columnist at the Nashville Voice, also a writer and reporter at Pro Player Insiders, and the host of the Touring the AFC South podcast. Joining me tonight on the Wise Guys Sports Show on the Worldwide Sports Network is Mike Patton. Mac, let's switch gears and talk defense for the Tennessee Titans. Defensively, they are led by Shane Bowen, and most people believe they will be a top 5 defense with their dominant front seven led by Jeffrey Simmons. He's one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. They did lose Harold Landry to a torn ACL, so that's going to be devastating for that defense. But they still got Bud Dupree, who is a good pass rusher, and their secondary led by free safety Kevin Byard and Amani Hooker. So what is your expectations for the Titans defense this year?
Well, I will say this, the Harold Landry injury to torn ACL was last Wednesday in practice, and definitely a big loss. Kevin Byard did talk about it. He talked about, of course they do have to move forward, but he didn't want to just jump over it and talk about, talk about the injury, losing one of his brothers on the field.
Yeah.
But they do have a young man in Rashad Weaver that is chomping at the bit to replace him. And this young man missed a lot of last year. So this is almost like his rookie year over again.
Yeah.
And from all indications and all things I've seen, they're very excited about him. So now he gets extended playing time. And to be honest, I believe he could come in and actually produce 8 to 10 sacks potentially.
Okay.
To go along with him, then you have, Jeffrey Simmons, of course. You have Bud Dupree, who actually is healthy to start the year. Last year, he did talk about how he didn't really feel kind of healthy until the end of the year, the last game of the regular season.
Yeah.
So this year he come in, he's fully healthy the entire year. The back end of the defense is going to be interesting as well, but they're going to be a defense that's going to be a top 5 defense, in my opinion, just because of the different levels, the different experience at the different levels, which, of course, it is overlooked that they do have Zach Cunningham and David Long Jr., who are very speedy linebackers, very smart linebackers, and guys that can make plays and big pops as well. So those are they have experience, explosiveness, and they have playmakers at all 3 levels, which is a key element for being a top 5 defense.
Absolutely. And I think last year was Bud Dupree's first season, after he suffered a torn ACL the year before. So, yeah, it takes a while to get back. And so that's interesting. He said he wasn't all the way, feeling 100% healthy until the last game of the season. What level of this Titans defense will be the strength of the team, Mike?
The front will be, you got your front 3 and your outside linebackers. Those will be the strength of this team, because last year, if you notice, they didn't really blitz a lot. They really got pressure with their front.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the key. If they're having to blitz to get pressure, then that leaves young corners out there on the island. You got Caleb Farley, who's, of course, being healthy for this year. And I will say he noticeably looks bigger as well. You notice he put on a little bit more weight since he was out with his ACL in terms of not bad weight, but good weight in terms of muscled up, things like that.
Yeah.
He says he's about 190, but I would say, he looks bigger than that. But he still can move. So it'll be probably him starting out the season. You will see Roger McCreary, the rookie from Auburn, in the mix. And then also, of course, Christian Fulton, who's probably a little bit a little bit underrated to me because he is definitely talented and kind of held down being the number one corner without officially being the number one corner for them last season. So that'll be the front four that got to be effective because you don't want to leave those corners out there on islands all the time. And of course, with a little bit of youth out there, you don't want to do that because for those that aren't aware, Kevin Byard and Amani Hooker, those are probably your vets in the secondary. Everybody else is pretty young.
Yeah, for sure. Offensively or defensively, Mike, what's the one thing that has to happen for the Titans to have a successful season? One thing that you would pinpoint that has to happen for this team to be successful this year?
Offensively, I'd say value the football. Can't have Tannehill out here turning over the football. Can't have any fumbles. Got to take care of the football in order to win games. I probably sound like Mike Vrabel when I say that, but as far as defensively, getting pressure with your front, that's going to be huge. That's going to be a key to the season. Last year, they were one of the best in NFL of getting pressure without having to blitz. This year, I believe they can do some of the same things. I will tell you also, Jeffrey Simmons is slimmer this year. He's not 300 some odd pounds this year. He's a little slimmer this year than he was last year, but that's with the kind of the assumption of trying to, I guess, get a little bit more quicker into the backfield. He still has the power per him, but he's wanting to get quicker in the backfield and be able to make plays, not just sack the quarterback, but be able to strip the football as well. So that's one thing he's kind of trying to add to his repertoire this year, which if he's able to do that along with the rest of this front, it's going to be mighty tough days for a lot of people.
Now, before I get to your prediction for the Titans this year, Mike, I got to ask you about Malik Willis because, I thought, Ryan Tannehill was so awful in that playoff game. I mean, defensively, I think the Titans sacked Burrow at least 7 times in that game. Nine. Okay, 9. All right, well, they sacked Burrow 9 times in that game. I mean, usually, if your defense, is able to get 9 sacks, normally that means you win playoff games. And so I thought Ryan Tannehill, single-handedly handed the Bengals their ticket to the AFC Championship game. I thought throughout the offseason, Ryan Tannehill honestly should have been ashamed to show his face, in the city of Nashville. That's how bad he was in that playoff game, Mike. So, if Tannehill struggles during the season, do you think there's any chance or a possibility that we see Malik Willis this season?
I know a lot of people are not going to like to hear this, but no, there is not a chance that we see Malik Willis this year.
Okay.
This is unless there's like a special package for him. No. The reason why I say that is this. You want to put Malik Willis in the best chance to succeed. I know he's done some great things in the preseason. I know he's made some spectacular plays, but also you have to remember he is a rookie.
Yeah.
I don't care if he was supposed to have a first-round grade or not. He is still a rookie. He's coming from an offense that was a one-read offense at Liberty to an offense where he has to go through multiple reads and then get down the field or do what he's going to do.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen overnight. Now, I will also say that he has grown since he has been here. Now, of course, from some things like accuracy to calling the plays to, being able to diagnose things on the field, he's grown in that arena. But if you put him out here as a rookie, you're not doing him a great service as well in terms of his career. I believe that next year will probably be the year for him to take over, but not this year. Let him sit, let him learn, let him grow, and then go from there. Because if you put him out there before he's ready, then you take a really big chance of ruining him, and then you're back drafting another quarterback again, and then waiting in another year, and then doing this and doing that.
Yeah.
So the only way I see him taking the field is if Ryan Tannehill gets hurt. That's the only way I see him taking the field, and even at that point, it will be probably a toned down offense that he'll be running. So that's what I see. That's what I know. I know a lot of people are like Ryan Tannehill this, Ryan Tannehill that, Ryan Tannehill that, but I'm like this. Look at folks.
Yeah.
He has the biggest cap hit in the NFL
Yeah.
at quarterback. He was not going anywhere, even if you wanted him to go anywhere.
Right.
So either you just got to suck it up and take it. Now, this offseason, after this one, I could see that coming, but not this past offseason.
And a lot of times, though, Mike, too, these quarterbacks who perform well in these preseason games, these rookie quarterbacks that perform well in these preseason games, you got to take it with a grain of salt because they're going up against backups. They're going up against a lot of dudes who not even going to be on the team once week one comes. So you got to think about that and take that into consideration as well. So that's also important. So Titans over under at 9.5. Are you taking the over or the under for the Titans win totals this year? What you got their record at?
I'm taking the over, and I'm taking 10-7 for the Titans this year.
10-7. Okay. Playoff team?
Yes.
Ooh, okay.
Wild card.
Okay. Now, got a couple more questions for you. I ain't got much left, Mike, because we got the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Houston Texans. So I ain't got much left. But let's start off with Jacksonville. They finished 3-14 last year. They brought in a Super Bowl winning head coach in Doug Peterson. They are only favored in 2 games this season. What are your expectations for the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Honestly, I think they will be better this year. I honestly think that the Jacksonville Jaguars will be a more professional looking team this year. Of course, that's just going to be on the strength of the coach not being, into into shenanigans like he was last season. Doug Peterson's not that guy.
Right.
Also, this offseason, they did take a chance on bringing more playmakers in. You brought in Zay Jones. You brought in Christian Kirk. Say what you want about him, but hey, he's more competent than what they had.
He overpaid him. He overpaid. They paid him a lot of money.
I hear you there, but also what I will tell you is that he's only accounting for a base salary of about $1.5 million this year. So, take that into consideration as you think about all the pieces that they got around him. And technically, his deal is only a 2-year, $39 million deal, to be honest.
Okay.
But with the $1.5 million that he's getting this year, and you also have to factor in the signing bonus. So when you break all those factors down, it doesn't seem quite as bad, even though it is bad. So, and then also, of course, I would say that, the biggest weapon I think they took a chance on bringing in, Evan Ingram. Now, Evan Ingram's talented. That's without question. He definitely can run routes like a wide receiver, he's a tight end. Biggest thing with him is actually seeing and catching the football. Yeah. And I think he knows this is his time to shine. He's on a 1-year deal. He's got a chance to make big money. That cap is going to be going up with TV money. So it's time for him to get the Benjamins, and I bet he'll perform. And the biggest thing is Trevor Lawrence's biggest weapon he used last year, the tight end, Dan Arnold.
Yeah.
Replace Dan Arnold with a more capable tight end. Hey, you might have some action going. Yeah,
and I actually liked the Jaguars' move, and I think they upgraded. Obviously, it wasn't nothing that they had to do to improve drastically. Because you go from they had Urban Meyer last year, and it was a mess last year down there in Jacksonville, to Doug Peterson. I like Doug, Mike. I really, really do. For his career, 42, 37-1, so he's won 53% of his games. He won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles, for crying out loud. So I like Doug. I like Doug, and I think he's going to help with the progression of Trevor Lawrence. So what do you believe that Doug Peterson is going to bring to that Jacksonville Jaguars team for them to improve this year?
Well, definitely professionalism. And one thing I definitely will say, he can tutor Trevor in terms of kind of seeing the field a little better because, as you mentioned, Nick Foles there winning a Super Bowl, which I actually was covering that Super Bowl, by the way. Okay. He also turned Carson Wentz into a MVP level quarterback.
Absolutely.
People forget that. So, I would say that he could definitely do some of the same things potentially with Trevor Lawrence. I know people are going to say it's Jacksonville. I know.
Yeah.
But Trevor Lawrence is still a talented quarterback. It doesn't matter what uniform you put on.
Yeah.
So, I would say that he's definitely going to do that. And then the biggest thing I would say is the running game. The commitment to the running game, I think, is going to be huge, especially with the upgrades. You bring in Brandon Scherf from Washington Commanders. You sign Cam Robinson to a new deal. You draft a center out of Kentucky to be your starting center more than likely.
Yeah.
I mean, they committed to being better up front. And I think that running game with ETN and James Robinson is going to be hugely key and a good thing for the Jaguars under Doug Peterson, provided he uses it a lot.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, provided he uses it.
Now, Trevor Lawrence, as a young quarterback in the NFL, Mike, last year, 12 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, 3,641 passing yards. He completed 60% of his passes. He was a rookie. It was his first season, so obviously he struggled. But, do you believe in Trevor Lawrence, as a franchise quarterback? And, what do you believe that he has to improve on specifically in his sophomore season so he can be better than he was in his rookie season?
I do. You said, do I believe he can be a star quarterback?
Yeah, two-part question. Do you believe he can be a franchise quarterback, and what does he have to improve on the most in his sophomore season so he can be better than he was in his rookie season?
Well, I definitely believe he can be a franchise quarterback. I mean, he has all the ability in terms of the tools and things like that. The one thing I would think, a couple things he needs to improve on, just his selection in terms of what he throws and what he doesn't throw. Be a prime example. Somebody was showing a film about him throwing the football, and it was a beautiful pass, and he barely got it over the outstretched arm of a defender with his wide receiver catching it right over the top of him. Now, beautiful pass, but is he going to take a chance and do that every single game?
Right.
If he's going to take a chance to do that every single game, then he might end up with the same numbers he had last year, which isn't good. I think with Doug, he'll kind of pare things down a little bit for him, bring him down, kind of understand, hey, take what the defense can give you. Just go take shots from time to time, but take calculated ones, not careless ones. So I think with that being said, he'll definitely take the more calculated shots and definitely kind of grow more towards that franchise player to me. And if you like, I definitely got a touchdown interception prediction for him too.
What you got?
I got about 25 touchdowns this year, and I got maybe 10 to 12 interceptions.
Okay, that would be a significant improvement from his rookie season to his sophomore season for Trevor Lawrence.
Definitely. That just speaks to the belief I have that the Jacksonville Jaguars can not be as bad as they were last year.
What's their record? What you got them finishing at their record going to be this year, Mike?
All right. I've got them finishing 8-9 this year.
Wow. What? You got them at 8-9? What? That's impressive.
Yeah.
That is a major improvement than it was previous last year. That's a major improvement, Mike.
Well, they've got talent. I mean, they've got talent. Defensively, they've added some talent too. I think Cisco at the safety spot. No, not Cisco from Drew Hill. Cisco from Syracuse. At the safety spot. But yeah, he's gonna be a big addition, I believe, to that defense. Then you got Griffin. You've got Tyson Campbell. You've got Williams. You bring in from the Rams to play cornerback for them. That's three pretty solid corners in its own right. Yeah, Olaquan you bring in from the Falcons to play your middle linebacker spot. Yeah, Trayvon Walker, you put him there on your along your defensive line. And the last time that Josh Allen, not Josh Allen Buffalo, Josh Allen in Jacksonville. There's two of them.
Yeah.
But last time Josh Allen had a comparable, defensive guy on the opposite side of him to provide pressure, which ironically is Ndakwe that's in Indianapolis. He had 10.5 sacks. That was his rookie season. Now he has somebody opposite him. So I think Mr. Allen gets loose on that opposite side, and he's going to get double-digit sacks this year, in my opinion.
Man, that's 8-9 is impressive for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I know. I said it with my chest, man. Read my shirt. It says unafraid.
I see it. I see it for sure. Now, we only got a few more minutes, but we got a few more minutes. That's all we need to give the Houston Texans. That's how bad they're going to be this year, Mike. So I recently listened to your podcast on touring the AFC South, and you had on A.J. Jones, and he's an insider, down there in Houston, and y'all discussed the Houston Texans in depth. and y'all talked about the drama surrounding the organization with David Culley in the front office, and obviously you had the Deshaun Watson situation. This year, I think Texans fans, they're more than anything, they are praying to be drama-free. That's the main thing for them. They got Lovey Smith now, in his first year as head coach. What are your expectations for Lovey Smith as the head coach in Houston?
Well, Lovey Smith is going to be more of a caretaker of this team. He's more in tune with his players, I would say, than Bill O'Brien. I can't say David Culley was or wasn't in tune with players. I think the players love playing for him. It just the organization wasn't necessarily bought into him. I think in this instance, the organization is bought into Lovey, and the players are in tune with him. So you kind of get the best of both worlds from different places. I think you can expect a guy that's going to have his players leave it all on the field every single game, a guy that's going to be a stand-up guy, and he's just going to be a coach's coach on that team. So, they're bought into him apparently. So, hey, I'm rooting for Lovey to at least get more than one season, because we don't want another David Culley situation.
Agreed. A couple more questions for you on the Houston Texans. He's a columnist at the Nashville Voice, also a writer and reporter at Pro Player Insiders, and a writer at Sports Awakening, host of the Touring the AFC South podcast. He's Mike Patton, joining me tonight on Wise Guys on the Worldwide Sports Network. So, Mike, offensively, Texas, they're led by David Mills. In his rookie season, he had 16 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He had 2,264 passing yards, completing 67% of his passes. He only played in 11 games. He replaced Tyrod Taylor. How do you feel about how Mills performed last year, and what's your expectations for him this season?
Well, the biggest word that comes to mind is inconsistent. I mean, but he's a rookie, so that was to be expected.
Yeah,
he had a few games where he came out and hey, maybe this guy has something. In other games, you're like, okay, he throws 4 interceptions or three or 4 interceptions, and you're like, oh, he ain't it. But apparently in this offseason, he came in with a little bit more, swagger to him. A guy that knows he is the starting quarterback for this season at least. So you expect a little bit more focus, a little bit more direction in terms of him being the leader of the offense, and the de facto leader because he's the quarterback. But so I expect him to kind of be a little bit more decisive with things because he knows the offense. He does have Pep Hamilton as his offensive coordinator, who did develop Andrew Luck, by the way, folks. Yeah. So that's going to help him as well in terms of his development. So I would expect him to go out here and kind of build upon how he did last year, maybe cut down on mistakes and, do a few more things with the football. Do I expect it leads to a ton of wins? No. Yeah. Do I expect him to be better? Potentially. Does he have the ability? Yes, he has the ability. But we'll see if that turns out to be, numbers-wise, a better season for him or not.
Now, I heard you, Mike. I heard you say that Brandon Cooks is the best receiver in the AFC South. And initially, Mike, I was like, what? Best receiver in the AFC South? But honestly, Mike, the more I thought about it, I had to agree with you. I'm like, what? He actually got a point there. He got a valid point. Brandon Cooks is the best receiver in the AFC South, especially now with the departure of A.J. Brown now, being in Philadelphia. And so who do you believe in this Texans offense is going to be another reliable target for David Mills besides Brandon Cook?
Honestly, that's still to be written. From talking to AJ about the Texans, Nico Collins hasn't necessarily stepped up the way they thought he would. He kind of ended the season on a high note, but he didn't, start the offseason and this preseason on the high note he left. It kind of hurts that John Mechie's not going to be out there. Prayers up for him as he battles cancer. Brevin Jordan, a guy that they don't they don't know what they're going to get from him. Yeah. But I will say this is an opportunity for OJ Howard. They just signed him. So this is an opportunity for Mr. OJ Howard to kind of go back to his Alabama days catching the football. So
yeah.
this could potentially be a place where he thrives and is an opportunity for him to make some money. So that's a guy I would say that could potentially step up and be the guy. Other than that, it's a mixed bag when it comes to the wide receiver room and the guys that can step up and potentially make plays outside of Brandon Cooks.
So, what are your win totals for the Houston Texans this year, Mike? What you got? What you got them finishing at?
I know I'm probably going to blow your mind with this one, but I got them winning 5 games.
Wow.
Here's the reason why. Here's the reason why.
Okay.
I will say this. They do have Damian Pierce running the football. I'm not sold on him, by the way. I know he's a rookie. Yeah. I know he's done a lot of great things, but he's doing a lot of great things, like AJ said, against guys that are trying to make the team. Right. Not guys that have already made the team. So we'll see what happens there. But I think Davis Mills will have some moments this year that'll help them win some games. And you got to also remember the defenses that Lovey Smith has also been around. Remember the things that he likes to do. He likes to create turnovers. Yeah. His defense, he has Jerry Hughes, a veteran defensive end. He has Renard on the opposite side, who was their leading sack guy with 8.5 sacks, but only played like 11 games last year, I think.
Yep.
Then you have, of course, that you have a few different other players, assortment of players. Of course, more notably Derek Stingley Jr. and Jalen Petrie, who are the rookies, which from, of course, LSU and Baylor, respectively. So those guys are kind of built in the Lovey mode, and the Lovey mode is cover, create turnovers. I think they're going to have a couple games where they show out, they make crucial turnovers, and I think that'll help them win some games. And I think that alone will get them to at least 5 wins. And if you look at their schedule, it isn't like they're playing against the most dominant of dominance. They do have, a weaker schedule because they were a weaker team last year.
Yeah, 5-12 for the Texans. You got the Jaguars finishing 8-9, so you got a competitive AFC South. So just so in totality, Mike, so everyone knows, you got the Colts winning the division, correct?
Right.
What you got them 11-6?
11-6. The Colts win the division. They got the Titans at 10-7. Colts at the Jaguars at 8-9, and the Texans bringing up the rear at 5-12. Now I will say this: it's going to be a interesting looking 8-9 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's not going to be one that's going to just stand out and be like, wow. It's going to kind of throw you off at the end of the year and be like, wow, they won 8 games. It's going to be one that kind of you're going to respond like that.
Yeah. Like they're going to stick up on some people. And so you got the Colts and the Titans, both playoff teams in the AFC.
Right. I think they both have what it takes to be in the playoffs this year. I think the biggest thing that always puzzles me at times about the Titans in terms of people that look at the Titans is they don't always understand their mentality. The mentality of the Titans is, when people don't believe in them, that's when you get the best out of them, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I think this year you're going to get some of the best out of some players that you probably wouldn't think of. Be like, hey, that guy played a little better than what I thought he did. This guy did this, stuff like that. You're more than likely going to see happen.
Yeah, I don't know, Mike. AFC going to be tough. I got the Colts winning the division. I think the Titans are going to struggle this year. I think they're going to take a step back. When you look at the rest of the AFC,
well, they are.
Huh?
Well, they are going to take a step back. Just they're going to step back 2 games, but still make the playoffs.
Yeah, but it's the competition is stiff in the AFC, Mike. I mean, in the AFC West alone, you got the Chiefs, Raiders, Chargers, Broncos. All 4 of those teams are teams that could be playoff teams. In the AFC North, you got the Bengals and the Ravens. I don't think the Browns are going to be a playoff team without Deshaun Watson, and he'll be in it for 11 games, but they got a complete team. And then in the AFC East, we know the Buffalo Bills are a playoff team. They're a lot. So, I don't know. It's going to be tough.
But you also have to understand, too, is in the NFL, there are 16 teams in each division, and almost half of them make the playoffs. So somebody's going to slip up. Somebody's going to get beat down in the AFC West that we're not thinking about. And in the AFC North, they don't call it the black and blue division for nothing.
That's true. Hey, Mike, let everybody know where they can find you at on social media and find your show.
Well, you can find me on Twitter at MikePatton82. That's MikePatton 82. Of course, you can find me on Twitter, on Instagram at the THA_general_MP. You never know who could pop up on my show. I definitely got a good one for you Friday. I'm not going to tell who it is yet, but I got a good one for you Friday.
He's a columnist at the Nashville Voice, writer and reporter at Pro Player Insiders, writer at Sports Awakening, and host of the Touring the AFC South podcast. Does great work. He's Mike Patton. Mike, I appreciate you coming on Wise Guys tonight and talking the AFC South. I'm gonna definitely bring you back on, later on in the season and talk more football with you.
Yes, sir. Definitely. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you. That was my man Mike Patton joining me on Wise Guys Sports. Everybody go and follow Touring the AFC South podcast on all social media platforms. Follow him on the Apple Podcast app and also Spotify as well. Mike's doing a great thing with that podcast, talking about the AFC South, goes in depth about the Indianapolis Colts, the Tennessee Titans, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Houston Texans. Everybody go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_OH. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. Make sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. I got to sign off here. I'll be back on Thursday previewing the NFL season. It won't be no NBA on Thursday night show. It's going to be all NFL. It's going to be my NFL preview for the 2022 NFL season on Wise Guys Sports. I'm going to get my predictions for the NFC West, the AFC North, and the AFC West. Those are the divisions that I haven't been able to preview yet. And I'm also going to give everybody my playoff teams and my expectations for the AFC and the NFC, and who I believe will be playing in the Super Bowl in Arizona in February. That's all going to be on Thursday night show. Also, I'm going to preview the Buffalo Bills and the LA Rams matchup Thursday night in Los Angeles. So it's going to be a great show on Thursday night. Call into the show 513-203-8655 on Thursday night. Remember, you can listen to the Wise Guys podcast on all the podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, if you got an iPhone, and so forth. I'm Trey Larkin signing off on this Tuesday night. Happy Taco Tuesday. Enjoy your night.